And over this long extended break, you did not forget your magic X, as we're going to be utilizing magic X a lot in these upcoming days. So remember that the magic X says that the factors of the top and bottom multiply here and they add down here. So it's multiply to the top and add to the bottom. And then we're also going to utilize and idealize factor by grouping. Factor by grouping involves the GCF. So we're going to be using Magic X and GCF, which is why we ended with that multiple choice quiz. And like I said, I'm going to hopefully be getting those scores in and getting anybody that missed that or did not take that done today. So if you were to factor, factoring warm-up is basically this idea here is the GCF. So if you have two terms, you are looking for a GCF. The GCF is 4x. So it's what you can take out. And when you multiply it back in, you do not lose any part of that problem. So go ahead and try the next one on your own for a second, and then I'll show you the answer. So again, go ahead and try the next one, and then we'll go over the answer. So the GCF of the next one is 8y squared. Because 16, 24, and 40 all divide by 8. Now, if when you tried that on your own and the first time you did it, you only took out maybe a 4, or you only took out maybe a 2, then you could look and say, oh, I could have actually taken out a larger number, and you would try again. The second problem, you're factoring it. To factor that, you're using the technique called a difference of squares. A difference of squares says you have a perfect square minus a perfect square. And that factors as x minus y, x plus y. And then the last warm-up question is once again a GCF. And you take out the GCF of 18 and 8, which is 2, leaving behind 9c squared plus 4d squared. Now don't let this one confuse you with the last one. This is a sum of perfect squares, which does not factor like a difference of squares. So this is a sum of perfect squares, which does not factor the same way as a difference of squares. And then the last one, so we have negative 64 plus 4m squared. This one can factor into a multiple ways. You could rearrange your terms so it was 4m squared minus 64. You could look at that and think, oh, I can take out a GCF of 4, leaving me m squared minus 64 divided by 4, which is 16. That is a difference of squares. It becomes m minus 4, m plus 4. Now, some of us may not have seen the GCF of 4, and they would have rearranged those terms, and they would have said, oh, 4m squared and 64 are both perfect squares, and you might have factored this as a difference of squares of 2m minus 8 to m plus 8. That is also a correct factorization of this problem. Okay, and in this one, we're going to FOIL. Remember, FOIL stands for first, outer, inner, last. When you FOIL, you combine the middle terms. And what we're going to do in today's lesson is actually reverse FOIL. The technique we're going to utilize today is called reverse FOIL. So there are some hints to help you choose when or how to factor. You're going to look for when the last term is positive, therefore the factors in the middle will have the same sign. You're going to look for when the last term is negative, because then the factors will have different signs. So again, just little cheat sheets to help you factor. Okay. So in this example, what's new from where we were is that the A value is now a number other than 1. So prior to break, we only looked at x squareds where the number in front was a 1. So now when we set up our magic x, we have to take the first number and the last number and multiply them together. So in the magic x, this is a times c, where we're talking about the standard form of a quadratic. So in this case, 3 times 6 is 18. The middle is still b. So the middle term in this case is 11. So I need two numbers that multiply to 18 and add to 11. So in this case, 9 and 2. So positive 9 and a positive 2. And then what's new is since the a value isn't a 1, we have to use the 9 and 2 to replace the 11. And then we're going to do factor by grouping. And again, this whole technique is reverse FOIL. So when you hear me reference it, I will reference reverse FOIL. So what we're going to do is take that middle term, so you have 3x squared. You're going to replace the 11x with 9 and 2x. And then write your plus 6. So again, this line right here looks like the line you would get in FOIL. And then to get your final answer, we're going to do factor by grouping, where you group the first two and you group the last two. So again, factoring with the a value greater than 1 is all the factoring techniques summed together. So the GCF of 3x squared and 9x is 3x. That leaves behind x plus 3. The GCF of 2x plus 6 is 2. That leaves behind x plus 3. Remember that when you do factor by grouping, what's left behind should match. So means this answer in factored form is 3x plus 2, x plus 3. And if you were to FOIL it, you would get this line right here. So we're going to do a few examples like this today, because once you do a couple, it becomes a repetitive problem in which the same technique is utilized over and over again. But I know that first time you see it is always a bit of a challenge. Okay, so we have 4x squared plus 16x plus 7. So we're going to set up our factor with our magic x. So you multiply the first term and the last term. So 4 times 7 is 28. Put in your middle term. So I need two numbers that multiply to 28 and add to 16. They're both positive because this is positive, positive. Any guesses? Nick? Perfect. So we're going to use 14 and 2. So we're going to replace 16x with 14x and 2x. The order that you replace it doesn't matter. So if you were working ahead of me and you replaced it with 2x then 14x, it doesn't matter. So what I mean is you could replace that with 2x plus 14x plus 7, or you could rewrite it as 4x squared plus 14x plus 2x plus 7. Either way you write it, replacing that middle term, you will get the same final answer. So you can replace it either way. So let's do the bottom one for the purpose of this, since I can write and work with that one more easily. So we'll group the first two and group the last two. The GCF of 4 and 14 is 2. And then x squared and x is x. So that leaves behind 2x plus 7. 2x plus 7 has a GCF of 1. So it leaves behind 2x plus 7. So my factored form is 2x plus 7, 2x plus 1. Okay, so this one's a little bit trickier than the last one because my middle term is now a negative. So when I set up my magic x, 5 times 8 is 40. But then the terms have to sum to a negative. So if the bottom terms have to sum to a negative but multiply to a positive, both terms I select have to be negative. And in this case, the two terms are actually the same two terms I multiplied from A and C. So it's going to be a negative 5 and a negative 8. And remember that when we do factor by grouping and we have a negative, that negative gets put inside the grouping parentheses. So a negative goes inside the grouping parentheses. So when you take out your GCF, you take out a negative whenever there's a negative on that first term. So 5x squared and 5x have a GCF of 5x, leaving x minus 1. Negative 8x and 8 have a GCF of negative 8, leaving behind a positive x and a negative 1. Because I need these two factors to match, I have to bring out a negative GCF. Making my final answer in factored form. 5x minus 8, x minus 1. Create your magic x. Multiply the first and the last, so 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. They need to sum to negative 4. So two numbers that multiply to a negative and sum to a negative tells me that one number is negative and one number is positive. So what negative and positive number combination would get me to a negative 12 and a negative 4? All right, Nick. Perfect. Negative 6 and 2. Now, I did state before that the order that you replace these does not matter. However, I will say that in terms of this problem, replacing the negative before the positive will always make your factor by grouping easier. So if you replace the negative first, when you do factor by grouping, you don't have to worry about taking out a GCF of a negative number. As we work through these problems, how many of us feel like they remember everything kind of coming back? Maybe it's a little foggy because it's been like a week and a day, but you can feel that brain fog lifting and the process and the problems and the way we do them is all sort of coming back to you. Yeah, nah, we're all, okay. I know you're all sort of like in a sleepy daze because how many of you are actually up before 10:30 on any of those days off is probably slim to none as well. Oh, Molly actually was? Okay. I know my own child was not waking up early. Yesterday I woke him up because they went back yesterday. He like came home and slept for like 2 hours. So some of you may have had to get up because you worked some extra shifts, but for the most part, most of you are sleeping and took skirt 11. So multiply the first and the last. Sum to the middle. So two numbers that multiply to 24 and add to 11. And both are positive. Anybody besides Nick? All right. Maya? Awesome. 8 and 3. The GCF of 2x squared and 8x is 2x. Leaving behind x plus 4. GCF of 3x and 12 is 3. Leaving behind x plus 4. So we have 2x plus 3 and x plus 4. And remember, you can always check by doing FOIL. So you have 3x, you have 8x. So that should match those two terms there. And then your outer terms should match as well as your last terms. So you can always do a quick check of all of these with FOIL. So you have 12 and 7. Pretty easy. Two numbers that multiply to 12 and add to 7. I got you be able to pick on any of you and you should know it. Good. Miss Madison. Thank you. Replace that middle term. Group. Remember, when you take out the entire problem, a placeholder of 1 needs to be there. So if your GCF is 4x, don't lose that 1. Or if your GCF is 3, don't lose that 1. So you get 4x plus 3, x plus 1. And again, you can see that if you have an a value other than 1, these two terms don't work as the factors at the end. Okay, and then the very, very last one we're going to look at. 2 times 6 is 12, negative 7. So now I have a negative on bottom, positive on top. That means both my numbers are negative. So in this case, it's the flip of that last one. It's negative 3 and negative 4, which once again means I need to be careful when I do my factor by grouping to make sure that I include that negative inside the grouping parentheses so that when I take the GCF, I pull out a negative. So anytime you have 2 negatives in your magic X, your GCF needs to pull out a negative. So the GCF of 2x squared minus 3x is just 1x. The GCF of negative 4x and 6 is negative 2, leaving 2x minus 3. And again, you could do a quick distribution and see you get back to this. So we have x minus 2 and 2x minus 3 as my factored form. Okay, your homework is the next worksheet in that packet. If you have your grade, like next year class sign-off sheets out, I can come around and sign those right now. So if you have an idea of what you want to do or what you want me to sign off on, I'll come around.